Hello and welcome. I'm Neil Howarth, the Solution Leader for SAP Customer Experience in the Mid-Market. On behalf of SAP, we are delighted you can join us today for this truly groundbreaking event, SAP Customer Experience Inspire, which is part of the Mid-Market Summit series. And we focus on purely supporting the growth and development of mid-market businesses and sharing all of the stories with you. For those of you who don't know, SAP's customer experience business is one of the fastest growing at SAP, and it features in the top right-hand corner of both visionary and a leader in numerous analyst quadrants. And customers from just £2 million turnover upwards are using the solutions to enhance their customer experience, simplify their operations, and drive top-line revenue growth. The journey really starts with commerce. We have B2B, B2C in numerous industries, such as telco and travel and financial services on a single platform. And this solution powers over 2,500 customers globally and provides a market-leading customer experience for their customers with lots of the business tooling behind that as well. And brands such as Office Shoes, Dreams and Satair really rely on this platform for their growth. This is really tightly coupled with our marketing solutions. So we have a Marsis, an omni-channel customer engagement platform, and this allows marketeers to provide campaigns across all channels using data from every part of the business, powered by automation and embedded AI. And we have brands like Gymshark, Bulk Powders, Happy Socks, who do mass scale personalization to their customers. And SAP's combined service and sales solution allows customers to run an omni-channel ticketing and field service operation whilst managing lead, op, quote, and the whole kind of process. And we have customers such as Arco, Dooney and Elkjob that use this solution. And all of these interactions that I've talked about, they can be managed from a single place. All these channels, all this data is surfaced in our SAP customer data platform, coupled with identity and consent. It really allows our customers to have a full 360 view of their customer. ProDirect, Global Media, and Weller, just to name a few, are customers using this suite of solutions. And these are all delivered really quick, time to market in the cloud. And the reason I wanted to very briefly just explain the whole set of solutions is just so that you understand kind of SAP's investment and SAP's focus in customer experience. Now on to the more exciting part. So today's session, we really have an action-packed agenda over the next 2 hours. So firstly, we're going to hear from our very special guest today, Rugby World Cup winner Jonny Wilkinson, who's reached the pinnacle of his sport, and his inspiring keynote talks about his experiences and how that shaped him as a person. And he shares his insights really on being a top performer and how others can replicate this mindset. We'll then hear from Leica Mobile, who are new to the SAP family this year. They'll share their experiences and exciting plans for growth. We'll then switch gears and look at insight from the market. Oliver Banks is a leading change and transformational consultant in retail, as well as other industries. He shares his insight from running numerous change programs, inviting people to consider your chance to change. Jules have been an SAP customer for 10 years, and we'll hear from them after Oliver about what's changed for them over that time and how their business has really shifted to digital, but how customers still remain at the center of that proposition and how an integrated marketplace really helps them to accelerate that growth. We then hear from Alex Bezer, Glanbia Performance Nutrition, and one of their flagship brands, Body and Fit, their growth trajectory and how they've really used SAP to support that. And then finally, we return to a brief and intimate Q&A with Jonny Wilkinson, where we asked some questions, including what was going through his mind when he kicked that drop goal in the World Cup in 2003. So really action-packed agenda. Please keep your eyes out for a poll as well when Johnny is speaking. And you're welcome to put questions in the Q&A section at any time. So without any further ado, I'll hand over to Johnny for the keynote.
Hi, my name is Johnny Wilkinson, and this is my pandemic game plan. At a very young age, all I wanted to do was play rugby. It was my passion. I just loved being on the field. I loved having a ball in my hands. I loved exploring everything, all my skills and abilities. Such an amazing part of my life, and all I wanted to do was be a rugby player and see as far as I could get with that. So I set a load of goals for myself. I wrote them all down on a piece of paper. I wrote down what it was I wanted to achieve. I wrote down playing for England. I wrote down being the kicker for England. I wrote down scoring the most points ever for England. I wrote down playing for the British Lions. I wrote down winning a World Cup. I wrote down everything I could possibly think of, and I wrote down the highest possible goals I could think of. I set the bar as high as possible. And amazingly enough, pretty much all of it happened. All of it came true. There were some interesting moments along the way, but more than that, there were some incredible moments that all came together to help me to find my way along this path. And by the age of 24, I found myself in a stadium in Australia with pretty much about 100,000 people watching there, millions watching around the world, in the World Cup against Australia in the last seconds of extra time, and with the ball in my hands, and having spent most of my childhood creating this scenario with my brother, whether it be kicking drop goals or kicking penalties, and saying things like, "Oh, it's down to the last few seconds and it's over to Johnny, he's going to kick it." These kind of things I was saying were now being said about me. And not just that, but what happened next was the ball went between the posts, and my life changed dramatically from that moment. Dramatically in the sense that there was an immense state of euphoria, absolute explosion of joy, and just an amazing experience. But interestingly enough, soon after the final whistle, that experience to sort of fade away. It started to ebb and fade away, so much so that by the time I reached the following morning, very little of it was left. In fact, it'd be replaced by a lot of things that I was a lot more familiar with: frustration, emptiness, a huge amount of that same unworthiness that was still hanging about. And it caused me to start to question things a little bit more, because the whole point of my dreams and my goals had been, one, to follow my passion. But as I'd moved along this journey, it became more as an idea that this would somehow resolve all that sense of inadequacy or sense of fear, or whatever it be. I felt that at the end of all this suffering, all the dedication, the training, and the hurt and what have you, I felt like this was going to be the answer to everlasting joy. I wasn't quite able at that stage to understand it enough to go any deeper. So I ended up creating a new goal, and that was to say, well, the reason I'm not experiencing this joy and this whatever it is because we need to win a World Cup in 4 years' time, making it 2 World Cups in a row. If we do that, then I know I'll be happy. And so I pretty much just pushed off this revelation, as it were, this really important revelation. I managed to push it away and hold it at arm's length and give myself another 4 years to carry on doing exactly the same thing, to carry on the struggle, to carry on the sacrifice, to carry on the suffering, convincing myself that at the end of that 4-year path, it would be there. And to carry on the fairy tale style endings at the end of that year, that World Cup, I came back from an injury. We went on an amazing run, which took us right to the final. Unfortunately, we didn't win, but but an amazing tournament, amazing feelings, but again, the same emptiness. And it was only during that period there when I experienced 3 or 4 years worth of non-stop injuries. I started to question things just enough and to sense enough energy and desire to understand things a bit deeper, that I started to realize something. And what I began to realize was that at this stage, at the age of, I think I was about 26, 25, 24, 25, 26, 27, in that period there, I realized that with what the specialists were telling me, I may never play rugby again with some of the injuries I had. I realized that this could be the end of my career. And if it was the end of my career, and see it as a career well lived, did I make the most out of it? And it was a difficult question to answer, because I had a lot of trophies to show for it. I had some awards. I had some comments from other people. I had a lot of this kind of things to show for it. But that didn't feel like anywhere near enough. In fact, actually, that didn't even touch what it was I wanted to be able to say about it, which was absolute fulfillment, a sense of absolute ease, and I guess in a way, joy about an engagement with with the opportunity I had. And it was at that point I realized that maybe this end of the career was then an immediate opportunity to look at life in general and say, well, what about the end of my life? If I'm at the end of my life sort of staring at the next few moments, which may be my last, would I look back on my life and ask the same question? And how was I going to start being able to answer that question with some kind of real truth and commitment? Because at the moment I knew one thing I could tell you was I was unfulfilled. I felt an emptiness where I wanted to feel a wholeness. And I sort of realized at that point that I'd been searching for potential in very much the wrong place. I'd been looking for my now, to live in the now, but I was looking for it constantly in the future. There was this flawed logic which was never ever going to right itself. I was living life definitely according to the idea that all this suffering was going to bring me joy. I started to look at the idea about retirement, not that I was planning on retiring then, but the idea about life, that you work for so long to have this period of retirement when you can enjoy yourself. But I started to look at people around me and actually started to ask people, how's retirement? Is it worth it? And nobody ever said yes. But what a lot of people were continuing to do were work on a new kind of pushing away this issue at arm's length, to say, well, once I leave my legacy, which was something I was hugely invested in, this idea I'm going to leave my legacy, which means that when I'm gone, then I'll be happy because people remember me a certain way. And this flawed logic had now almost expanded into a crazy logic, this idea that I was going to be happier when I wasn't here. And so began a much different look at potential. It's so far been a very kind of how much training can you do, how much almost research, just more and more, just comparing against others, doing a bit more of this, doing a bit more of this. It was all this kind of preparation, which was trying to gather more and more tools and gather more and more strength in all this information from the outside and carry it with me. And all I felt as I moved along this journey was more and more weighed down by it. And I sort of came across a really important question for myself, which was, okay, I'm going to stop looking at that. I realized now that I was spending 6.5 days a week completely absent, really, really in a difficult state, just so I could try and enjoy 2 hours on a Saturday or a Sunday, depending on when the game was. And I started to sort of ask myself, okay, this one question, which was, how do I really feel? What's my experience when I'm at my absolute best, And I tried to be as truthful as possible to that experience, not to go along these ideas about, kind of outside things that may make a difference. And what if people, I just wanted to go to the actual internal experience. My internal truth when I'm at my best was that I felt effortless. And there's a really dangerous link that's made, is that all that suffering is what causes or creates that moment of joy. When it's not, it's actually the whistle, as you ask any rugby player, is that you just drop all those other things. You just let go. And what's left is what was there, always there, before any of the gap, that sheer connection with what you're doing. I'd done the opposite. I kept rewarding that or attributing all that joy and in the zone style performance to all that stressing and suffering. So I then went back and decided I'm going to do more and more of it, so I get more and more of the joy. Unfortunately, the relationship doesn't work like that. Suffering doesn't end in joy. More and more suffering just creates a greater habit of suffering. It doesn't end in that kind of joy. And I sort of, I guess, came to the understanding through this kind of desire, as it was, to be perfect, to get things right, to control everything, that the way that things turned out for me were apparently the secret potential. All my outcomes, all my results, the way that people thought about me, that was going to be what was going to unlock this worthiness. And as a result, I was forced to stress and fight and do all these kind of things, which just all that meant was that I had a compromised body and mind, the two most amazing gifts you could possibly have. And the idea that I would somehow, through this clouded mind and this stressed body, I was somehow going to find my best. It was, definitely a little bit mad. It very much reminds me of, now that I coach a little bit with some kickers, certain sessions we might spend 2 minutes or so just really trying to liberate ourselves of all this gathered extra weight that we just don't need, all the expectation, the stresses and the pressures and everything. Just liberate ourselves, and you see that the performance is immense, is amazing, almost so much that the kicker himself or herself eyes are wide in shock at what they've just managed to do. And we start to talk about just how exciting it is that you could have a whole week to work on that, when in 2 minutes that was what was possible. So let's see what you could do with the whole week. At the end of the week, the kicker comes back in a state of fragility, in tension, and the performance is so small in comparison. And you have to ask the question that, what are we doing in preparation? And that preparation is liberation. It's not this gathering, this protection. That potential, looking at this state of when I'm at my absolute best, I am able to say that in that state, if I can say anything, it's that anything is possible. It's a state of creativity. It's a state of imagination, of just limitless possibility. And when I feel connected to my potential, what I can say is that potential is therefore, it's not earned from someone or something, and it's not proved to someone or something. It's something that's revealed when you get the inner state and the inner environment correct. It comes down to, it really comes down to the fact that potential is creativity. It's the ability to create our world. It's the ability to create our opportunities, that when we find ourselves connected to our potential, things just start working out for us. Things happen, and we feel at one, we feel connected, we feel just in our element. It comes down to the simple fact of imagination, and our ability to devote ourselves to our imagination, to what we want, to what we really desire from life. Be able to devote ourselves, and being able to do that means simply having control of our attention, and in the same vein our energy, and having the ability to direct it where we want it to go. When we're able to send our attention where we want it to go and hold it there, anything is possible. But in the old style of these ideas about life that I had, certainly there was no way I could hold my attention on anything. It was going everywhere. I'd wake up feeling great about something happened to me, and suddenly I'm thinking about that, now I'm thinking about this, and I've got my attention 10, 20 different places, and I'm absent. And the world, in terms of the question I'm asking of the world, this is what I want. The world has no idea what I want. It's getting 20 messages from me. It's got no kind of ability to respond or work with me. I started to realize that my attention and my energy and my imagination especially just didn't belong to me. My mind didn't belong to me. Incredible to say that. So much so that I started using this as an experiment to say to people, there are people that consider themselves to be the most powerful and I guess impactful people or performers on the planet. But you can ask in a simple question to say, if you could have everything you ever dreamed of right now in front of you, if you could have absolutely everything you wanted right here and now, and all you have to do for the next 10 seconds is just not think about a pink monkey. Just don't think about a pink monkey for a second. That's it. And what people were finding by this, and me as well at the same time, was that it's crazy because your entire attention and energy can be taken from you by someone you've never met before, who simply says some words to you. It's amazing what I realized by this old idea that somehow the outside world determines the inside, and that what people think and feel actually determines what happens on the inside. It just means that you never lead because you're always led. And it means that your performance never belongs to you. It belongs to someone else or something else. It means that your relationships are never true connections of unconditional love. They're manipulations of using other people so that they can feel a certain way about this, so that you can feel better about yourself. There's no sharing. And it was an amazing revelation. I realized that all of these things I used to speak about in terms of team spirit, in terms of performance and everything, it was all accidental for me. I worked hard and hard and hard to try to make sure it wasn't. But in doing so, I stressed my body to such a state that I spent most of my time injured. And it came down to this big shift for me that realized I needed to start to look at myself as an emotional or energetic being than a physical one. Being a physical being, being identified with just yourself as a body and a mind, it means that your only way of changing the world becomes about you doing what you can do, and what you can do is limited. You can only do in terms of the space around you, more or less, and that's if someone else doesn't get there first or do something to stop you. Not only that, but this understanding, if you're physical, it means that who you are it belongs to the physical realm. It's going to end. And therefore it can be taken away. So everything becomes about protecting and surviving and trying to remain there. All the conversation around us is about coping and managing, trying to stay the same, try and resist change, trying to get through things. I felt this when I was playing rugby. So many times I'd sit there on the bench at the end of the game, and it'd been an amazing game. Such incredible experiences to talk about, to dream about for years to come. And all I could do with it was put a hand across my forehead and just say, thanks, thank God that's over. Phew. Yeah, I just managed to get through without letting a constant expression of, without letting people down, without letting my teammates down, without ruining my reputation, or without failing, or all these kind of things. But it was a mad situation to be in. With on top of that, there was this idea. At the beginning of my career, I was 8 years old and so joyful, so happy just to get a touch of the ball, to get its playing field, to even just get to train with the first team was just almost like my heart would explode with sheer joy. Fast forward 8 years and I'm 26. All I talk about now is stress, pressure, expectation, and fear. And yet it's the same pitch. It's the same ball. It's the same people. It's the same opportunity, infinite opportunity. And yet the fact was, at 18 years old, I had nothing I believed I needed to protect or survive. I just had no self-importance. But all these ideas that I gathered and held on to, and this physical sort of story and I had now, all I could talk about was the limits. My whole, as I mentioned, that creative imagination had allowed it to be determined by these and these ideas. So now I spend all my time just scanning the environment for possible irregularities, and always constantly thinking about the worst case scenario. What if this goes wrong? What if this goes wrong? There's no room for creativity or for love or performance or flow and all these things. And it came to this understanding I had about life was that who I am is a result of all I've been through. Meaning that this outside world and the way that things have turned out and the way that people have been or spoken to me or thought about me apparently has determined everything on the inside and shaped it. A really physical experience for me to have been shaped by the outside world. So who I was a result of all I'd been through. And I started looking into it with quantum physics and all these and all the spiritual traditions. And it's amazing that I saw in science, there's one thing science has never been able to prove, and that's that there is an outside world. There's nothing of physical has ever been experienced, has ever been found, sorry. It's amazing. We have an experience of physical, but it hasn't been found. And yet I built myself on this whole story that who I was physical, and it being shaped, molded, determined by this world around me. I looked at that 4-year injury period in my life where and I realized on a day when I was feeling a bit down, or I might have a different energy about me, I'd look at that 4-year injury period, and if someone asked me about it, I'd probably say something along the lines of, "Oh, what a load of rubbish! That cost me all my maybe 50 caps for my country, and all the games I could have played, and all the points I could have scored, and who knows what we could have won, and what a waste of time." But then you catch me when I've got a different energy about me, and you ask me about that period, I'd say it's the most amazing thing that ever happened to me. It was something that opened my eyes to a new possibility, to new experience, to a different way of living. I suddenly realized that this fixed past that I'd apparently kind of seen as a solid route to me being who I am was changing minute by minute. So I was really, really amazed that I could see this story of who I was, that I believed in so deeply, was changing minute by minute. There was nothing there. There was no strong foundation. It was changing. It was my opportunity to see it however I wanted, how I felt on the inside. I realized that who I am is not a result of all I've been through, but all I've been through is a result of who and how I choose to be now. The question was simply, was I able to start choosing? And this was my new search for potential, to realize that it's not about trying to control things on the outside. It's about getting access to what's on the inside and finding out how you can work with that, which was completely different. As I guess that means ultimately taking responsibility, otherwise known as the ability to respond to things. And in this way, you realize that the outside cannot touch the inside. What happens on the outside is often impossible to predict, and it's definitely never always how we want it. But how we are on the inside, that has to be down to us. And it came down for me to a simple thing of understanding it is just as the change room goes, when the whistle, you just decide to let go, because you become too engaged in too devoted to what you want to happen next to care about what's happened before. And this was the big shift for me. I'd spent my life using this understanding to say that in order to move on, I have to make sense of what's been before. Now, through this idea of responsibility and ability to respond, I realized that actually by moving on with the energy that I want to, I get to make sense of what's happened before. It isn't the other way around. You don't need to wait and look back and make sense so you can move on. That's what makes sense of everything that happened before. It's a really massive, massive change for me. And within that, there's a 3-step process that's been hugely important to me. The first one is just awareness, becoming aware of what's happening on the inside, sending all your your interest and your curiosity to the inside before it goes to the outside. No more blaming and pointing at problems, but becoming more invested in what's happening on the inside, becoming aware of when you're stressed, when you're angry, when you're fearful, and learning how to become aware of it in real time, as opposed to getting to the end of the day and falling back on the sofa and saying, "Oof, I've had a tough day today and I'm knackered." But actually during it to be able to say, "Oh, I can see I'm stressed at the moment," and to be able to see that stress comes from simply two forces working against each other. There is the alignment of this is what I want, and then there's working against it, and this is where acceptance comes in, the second stage. So awareness, the first one. Once you become aware of something, you can do something about it. The second stage of what you do about it is acceptance, understanding the inevitability. What's happening now and what's happened before is just inevitable. There's nothing to be done there. And when through that resistance, which was my key power when I was younger, was to resist things, to say, no, this isn't right, and therefore to fight it, was my way of trying to get where I want to go. And what happened was I was so much looking at the problem with my back to the future that I ended up sometimes in places I didn't be. And if I was in places I wanted to be, it was often by accident. But being able to accept wholly sends all your attention back to you, so you can then put it where you want it to go. And this was huge for me, the ability to just be able to accept when injury came, to say, yes, I'm injured. And all your attention then goes towards your healing, goes towards your energy, your desires, your ambitions for the future, start forming and molding and being at your best in every moment, rather than spending time in stress. Why am I injured? Why has it happened to me? Who else is playing? Oh, why is it going well for them? Am I ever going to get back in the team? What if this goes wrong for me? What if this happens again? What if I never play again? All this stress and tension is actually stopping any healing taking place anyway. So the final part of that three-step process, acceptance being the second one, awareness, acceptance, was the ability to respond, meaning just aligning yourself with what you really want. Passion, just excitement in every moment. What's most passionate and exciting to me? Responding is always different to reacting. Reacting is according to old ideas. And we're all going to react. It's sure we all react a little bit, but the question is, how long are we going to react for? We're going to spend hours reacting and put ourselves in a bad mood. You're going to spend days and weeks reacting and creating an interesting temperament. We're going to take months and years reacting and create personality traits like that. Question being, how long do we carry on reacting before we decide to accept and start responding? And what this ultimately meant for me through this acceptance was to start actually leading for the first time. Because going through acceptance, I was for the first time heading into the unknown. It's impossible to lead without going somewhere new. And for the first time, I was going somewhere new. I was willing to be open to the future, look at what's ahead and just say, okay, let's see. Let's go meet it. Let's go meet this unknown as me, my attention, all my energy in the right place. And what I found by doing that was that suddenly I was becoming inspired in those moments. It wasn't a case of coping and managing. It was a case of drawing upon the source of intuition for inspiration, for an impulse and an amazing instinct in moments that I didn't even know I had, to be surprised by life, rather than to try to meet expectation, but to actually be able to the amazing and impossible. And all this meant for me was I mentioned at the very beginning, at your very best, you feel connected. And for me, this connection takes place on three levels. It takes place physically, it takes place mentally, and it takes place emotionally. Physically, it involves just being relaxed and grounded. It's amazing to be able to say it, but in the state of relaxation and grounding, the body aligns. You gain stability from what you're beneath you, you gain traction and stability, and you're able to gather momentum. But your grounding your relaxation allows your central nervous system to move all these stored ideas and emotional traumas, just be able to move them away, no matter what the outside scenario, just to look to connect through that relaxed groundedness mentally, passion and excitement and composure. Just sort of come back to finding your composure through acceptance, and then start to be able to find that excitement and passion, that opportunity in every moment. And then finally, the emotional connection, which is to start truly buying into a sense of worthiness, worthiness and a deservingness of the life that you desire. And all of these things are choices in every moment. There's the choice to react and blame the outside. There's the choice to go and connect on the inside, and to just trust one more moment, to trust that what we want and what we desire, it is going to happen. It will happen. It will happen. It already is happening. It will happen. It will happen. When it happens and how it happens is not for us to decide. It's not for me to know or decide or choose when and how it happens. That's the surprise. If I start deciding when and how it has to happen, I start trying to control it, and I get back to stress and so on. Just the understanding, that trust in every moment to go one more step, knowing that it's going to happen, and that whatever comes in my path right out of the path, whatever comes in the way and seems to be something telling me that that I'm not good enough, or that this isn't right, or that it hasn't quite worked out yet, is actually just the next step for me to take, not one to turn back from. And ultimately, this for me is, when people talk about leadership, this means leading. When talk about performance, this means real performance. This means calling on your inner potential to see what you're really capable of. When it talks about relationship, this is real team spirit. Allow people all they want to be around you, and it's real transformation. And what it comes down to at the end of the story of suffering, stressing and sacrificing, fighting to find that joy, it's a different take on it, which means the responsibility of us all is to simply enjoy the hell out of every single moment that we're alive. And that, I think, will be the answer when I am at the end of my life, and certainly when I'm at the end of my career, to be able to look back and say, did I make the most of it? Or to know that it was all of me in every moment will definitely be enough.
Wow. Johnny Wilkinson. Coming up, putting digitization at the forefront of the customer experience. The markets have been pretty disruptive lately. Isn't it time to get into the right position so we can get in a few more scores?
Good afternoon. Really wanted to just thank you for your time, Ashutosh, on behalf of SAP. Really wanted to welcome you and the Leica Mobile brand to the SAP family. I'd really like to just, first of all, understand a little bit about kind of your role, and also, Leica Mobile, where they kind of are today, and kind of a little bit of insight on the wider group as well.
Yeah, good afternoon, Neil. Happy to connect again. So my name is Ashutosh. I have joined as a group CIO at Leica Mobile about 2.5 months back. Before that, I've spent about 30 years in the industry, many years with the other side you are in. So Leica Mobile as a business, we can say it's the largest MVNO player in the world. We operate in 23 countries. We believe no other MVNO player operate in so many countries. We are also expanding our current footprint in MVNO. We are planning to add a few more countries this year. So hopefully by end of this year, we will be adding 5 or 6 more countries. Besides, we have ventured into the MNO space, especially focusing in the emerging opportunities in the African market. So we have a MNO license in Uganda, and we are exploring a few other markets to be probably the second MNO player there. So we are on an expansion mode. Apart from that, the group is also into other businesses like travel services, financial services, media services. So that's how the group, but the core business is, our core business is the mobile services. And we are planning to transform our business by adopting, digital technologies, not just like a mobile, and across the group, we are planning to transfer over a period of next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah. Brilliant. No, it's really good insight and very exciting time. And, SAP as a company put a huge amount of emphasis on innovation. And what will be really interesting to understand is just, why you chose SAP to support your innovation journey, and how it will map to some of the areas you've highlighted there.
So I think we are very clear from the very beginning, my CEO and myself, while we are looking at transforming our business, we will adopt the best technology, we'll engage with the best platforms available in the market, because we are planning to significantly grow our business on the digital side. We are currently about 18 to 20% of our business on the digital side, and over the next 3 years, we are planning to increase that by 3 times almost. So we are very clear we will adopt only the best platform. And finally, based on our requirement for transforming our business, and the way we wanted to implement quickly, we evaluated all 3 platforms, and we felt that SAP is offering some of the best out of the box functionalities for the telco sector. Also, your AI ML technologies will help us to grow our business and offer customized offerings to our subscribers based on their usage pattern and requirement. And we also wanted a strategic partner who's willing to grow with us. While we are the largest player, our subscription base is not that big because we don't operate into major markets like India, China. So we wanted a partner who is willing to grow with us. We have high ambition, and we found SAP is very flexible and willing to adapt to our requirements, and that's why we felt SAP is probably the best platform for the functionalities out of the box, the strategic partnership, meeting our customized and flexible requirements, and of course the position of SAP Hybris platform in the telco sector, which is in a leading position.
No, that's really good insight. You touched on some areas that impressed you, and in terms of the engagement with SAP, and it was 3.5 months. It was it was a whirlwind, but was there any particular areas that impressed you, and how it was managed by SAP from an account perspective as well?
Yeah, so as you know, initial engagement started by our CMO because I was still not on board, and I think it started sometime end of December, and he kind of initially evaluated the 3 platforms from business requirements point of view, and we shortlisted. And then once I joined, in fact, before I joined, I got involved because we wanted to launch this platform as soon as possible to align to our business plan for the current year. And so I have had a fantastic experience during the engagement process, and I obviously have had experience of working with SAP in the past, but not in this region. And wherever we wanted some flexibility, because there are certain things my management and board had been looking for while choosing the platform, I think SAP has been very flexible. Multiple times, the team has gone back and come back in a record time, to propose and present something which meets our requirements. So that has been a fantastic experience. And that's kind of one of the reason we finally felt, and I personally recommended that probably SAP is our, best strategic partner for this initiative.
Look, really appreciate that sentiment, and the journey's just beginning, and we really look forward to taking that forward through the rollouts and everything else that's planned. So I suppose you touched on the competition very briefly. You don't have to go into specific product pieces, but was there anything different from what SAP offered? And you mentioned some of the telco industry experience that helped you as well to make a decision.
Yeah, so a couple of things. I think the out of the box capabilities of the telco accelerator, that was clearly a differentiator. Initially, we felt that probably SAP would be overkill for us. So we have Hybris platform because we are not that big, and probably the SAP system is meant for very large operators. But when we evaluated and we tried to match to our requirement and the kind of responses we got and the walkthrough on the solution you have done, and then finally on the commercial side, the way you have been flexible. So overall, I would say that SAP came on top in our evaluations that I presented to the management and the board. We are also looking for, apart from the capabilities, the commercial flexibility, we are also looking for the OEM scheme in the game, right? Because this is a very, very critical project for us. Our future business growth is linked to this. And I think that's where, again, SAP, came on top compared to the other platforms we were comparing, and got the senior executives involved and understood our requirement and offered us, certain services which we are looking for as part of the overall package. So that was clearly a differentiator. If I compare with the other, others were offering as separate services by either their partner or by their consulting. But what we got from SAP is, in one proposal, everything combined, and that kind of helped in us in deciding in favor of SAP. Yeah.
Brilliant. No, that's really good insight, and I think it's really interesting to hear that. And just finally, SAP supports companies of all sizes, right? And that was kind of interesting to hear that in one of your points earlier. But for someone that's on such a fast track growth strategy, really exciting where you're going. What's next after the initial launch, and what does the future hold for Leica Mobile and the group?
Yeah, so as I said, we are executing two large critical projects in parallel, the new OSS platform and also the new digital commerce cloud platform. So our hands are full at this point. Having said that, I think we intend to transform our business completely, and that's the vision our board and our CEO has. So definitely we'll look at transforming our other functions as well in future. Once we have these two projects get going smoothly, we plan to look at transforming the sales, channels, service, back office, all those processes. We want to look at. It might take some time, but definitely we want to look at. There are some requests coming from the business side, but my hands are full now. I don't want to engage into new areas. These two are critical projects, but definitely down the line in another probably 3 to 6 months, we are looking at transforming some of the other functions, and definitely there will be opportunity to work together if you have suitable offerings for some of those requirements which we are likely to have in the near future. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, look, I just wanted to say thank you very much again for taking the time to speak with me, give us a little bit more insight on that engagement process, and really again wanted to welcome you to the SAP family, and looking forward to a long and successful partnership. So thank you.
Yep, my pleasure. I think it's been a great experience working with SAP and IBM in this project. Look forward to similar support. We don't have a choice. We have to make this project a success because our future business is dependent on this. And I'm sure together we can make that happen. And I can count on, the support we have been getting. I'll continue to get that in future. And we will, travel together in this journey.
Absolutely. You can count on our support. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we're absolutely honoured to be joined by Ollie Banks from OB&Co. Ollie is one of the top 100 retail influencers from Rethink Retail, and also as of yesterday, top UK retail podcast as well. So we are really lucky to have Ollie with us today, and he's going to talk a little bit about your chance to change. So no further ado, Ollie, please introduce yourself and take it away.
Well, thank you so much, Neil. It's absolutely fantastic to be here with you at the SAP Mid-Market Summit. As Neil was saying, I'm Oliver Banks. I'm a retail transformation and operational change specialist, and I've led change teams and significant change programs at major retailers. I'm a consultant and coach helping retailers to transform their operating models and their businesses and make positive changes. And as hinted just there, I'm also the host of the Retail Transformation Show. And I suppose, above all, I believe that all companies have the chance to change, to transform, and to evolve and write the next chapter of their company's history. So I'm really, really excited to be here today talking about your chance to change. And, it's funny, I was thinking about, what to include in this session. And I was thinking, well, I could give you loads of insight, and I could tell you that digital forms of commerce are continuing to grow. But I thought you probably already know that. And then I could tell you that customer experience is really important and that you need to consider this across all your channels. But I'm guessing you know that too. So perhaps it's better that I tell you the exact ideas that you will need to do to lead yourself to greatness. Or perhaps it's better that I tell you what you need to do differently to set your growth trajectory way up. You see, in front of you, you've got a chance to change. But to be honest, if I just sit here and tell you these things, it's all going to be futile, because if you don't take the chance to make these changes, then these brilliant ideas will just all disappear and they'll all be in vain. So transformation is really a huge focus for me, but it's also a word that really fascinates me as well. It can be quite an emotive word. Take a moment and consider how you yourself feel about change, about transformation. Maybe for you, it's conjuring feelings of excitement, of intrigue, of curiosity, of optimism. Or maybe you're feeling anxiety and fear and threat and pessimism. Or maybe it's a whole mix going on in your head and in your heart as well. And these emotions and these feelings means that each of us have a natural draw towards or from the very concept of change and transformation. And I think that's partially what makes it so interesting and so difficult at the same time. Now, there are a couple of questions that I regularly get asked. Number one, does everyone need to change and transform? And number two, is transformation actually transformation, or is it just improvement? And I'll answer them in the same way, because there are two different types of transformation. There's fundamental transformation and incremental transformation. So, as you may guess, fundamental is around a clean sheet type approach, a significant shift away from your existing business model, your operating model, your customer base, or maybe even your entire strategy. And we've seen many businesses have to make these sort of big fundamental shifts over the past 20 months or so now, right? Whether it's the shift to work from home, whether it is curbside pickup, I'm sure you can think of lots of ideas from your own businesses or lots of other companies as well that you've experienced. But here, fundamental is about high risk and high reward. Incremental, however, as you might guess, is more about improvement, about optimization. It's about smaller changes. And whilst any individual change is small, when they mount up, they drive a major shift. Lower risk, lower reward, but collectively, they can add up to big differences. And it's also worth considering, I suppose, that continual incremental transformation can prevent the need to arrive at a place where your organization is needing to make a sort of a Hail Mary, bet the farm style significant shift, where that's literally the only option left in the bag before an unfortunate fate. So maybe you're sitting there thinking, well, which is best? Well, neither and both, I would say. Let's look at Amazon, perhaps the change powerhouse of our time. They're continually pushing the boundary, continually testing new things, and they're mixing both of these types of change and transformation. They experiment with new propositions continually, from Prime subscriptions to Alexa to their Just Walk Out technology that powers their Amazon Go and Fresh stores, or whether it's their Prime Video and the fact that they're moving into TV and movie production. And I could go on and on, right? And I'm sure you can think of lots of examples as well. But they are rewriting the rule book for what it really means to be a retailer, to the point where many don't even consider Amazon to be a retailer, right? I'm sure you've heard that sort of viewpoint before. But at the very same time, Amazon drive incremental transformation, optimizing their warehouse operation, adding in new automation solutions, changing their colleague reward, upskilling their colleagues, tweaking the algorithms on site, expanding Prime benefits, adding Alexa skills, you name it. They are continually pushing the boundaries a little bit further every single day. But on the flip side, let's look at some other retailers, and I'm sure you'll be able to think of plenty of companies like this as well that have neglected to drive incremental transformation. They've sat the same for years and years. And then when the alarm bell sounds and they need to make a major shift, they're either unwilling, unable, or unclear to drive that transformation. And I'm sure you can think of companies like this, like I say, and I'm sure you can work out what happens next. So the first question that I would like to leave you with today to think about and reflect is, do you have the right mix of fundamental and incremental transformation in your change program or in your strategy? So let's shift gears a little bit. Why would you or any other retailer or any other business for that matter struggle with change and transformation? Well, let's think back to an example company that is struggling, that is challenged. Maybe they have the right strategic pillars in place. Maybe they're not lacking ideas. They've got plenty of ideas to work on. And maybe these ideas are actually being worked on. They've got people actively working on them. It does happen, and yet companies continue to struggle. So what's happening? Well, there are a few different root causes at play here. Firstly, they may lack a real passion to change. Instead, and by default, I might add, they've decided that the status quo is more comfortable. And when this happens, we see some different symptoms happening. We see indecision in particular, whether that's flip-flopping between different preferences, whether it is reversing decisions that have already been agreed, whether it's about deferring or delaying decisions, or extending trials, or continually needing more information. How many of us have got to version 19 of a particular board update or approval paper or whatever that is, right? This is a sign that we just are continually refining because we're not really committed to change. And I can think of several companies, one successful company I've worked with, where the CEO and many of the senior leaders did not want to recognize the changing market. So whilst they were successful, their core market was declining and it was moving away from them. And though their innovative side of the business was actually really over-delivering on performance, delivering great results. But the fact is, the leadership did not want to move away from their core business, despite the challenges, despite the forecasts. And what happens was that the innovative side of the business struggled to get changes delivered. Decisions got reversed, work got deprioritized for no real obvious reason. And ultimately, what happens here is that change initiatives and future improvements are strangled in favor of sticking with the status quo. Now, secondly, there may be no goal for what wants to be achieved, or little substance or little detail about the what and the how of achieving that goal. And this could present itself as a vague strategy, no priority, or everything as priority, which, by the way, means no priority. Maybe there's a lack of clarity on the what and the how for any given solution or idea or initiative, or even part of the whole business. And I think in the retail industry, we have some really serious issues over clarity, particularly when it comes to technical terms. I'm thinking things like omnichannel, like seamless, AI, unified commerce, and even customer obsession. All of these sort of terms get thrown around. And I remember probably around 10 years ago now, when I first heard the term omnichannel, and I was familiar with multi-channel at the time, and I asked someone, I said, what is omnichannel? And they sort of looked at me blankly, and the rest of the room looked at me blankly, and no one knew. Yet everyone was using it as regular vocabulary. So I think there's this situation where we broadly know what something means, but there is this, like I say, lack of clarity. And what happens then is assumptions get made. So what's going on is our brains are putting things together. And when there is an assumption being made, there is a gap, essentially. And we fill in the gaps. That's naturally what our minds do, right? But the thing is, you and I, we fill in the gaps differently. And it's also different to everyone else. And it's based on our own experience, on our own perceptions, on our own feelings and thoughts. So we reach different conclusions, but we don't realize we are in a different place. We don't realize we have these different conclusions. And ultimately, as an organization, we get confused. And this confusion just adds mud to the water, really. And the journey that we're going on, we're not 100% clear where we're going. We're not 100% clear how we're getting there. And chaos ensues as we all head off in different directions based on this lack of clarity. And then finally, many retailers, let's be honest, are packed with great people that are real experts in their technical field, whether it's around a store operator, whether it's a merchandising or creative expert, or whether it's a supply chain guru. I'm sure you've got lots of people. Maybe you are one yourself. But these experts are not change and transformation experts. So when they are made responsible or even accountable for huge change efforts, they're left kind of feeling away. Being a great, let's say, supermarket store manager, for example, doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be a great change leader or change manager. You could be, don't get me wrong. And there are some fantastic people that have made that shift, but it's not a natural shift that you can just rely on. And it's funny, when you look at the technical experts in the business, and place those people in a major change role, there's an existential crisis going on as well, because they are being asked to find fault or opportunity in what they have been working on and maybe even have created for years and years. So it's naturally a challenge. And when people then try to balance the stresses and strains of sort of day job with the unpredictable nature of change, it gets hard and inconvenient and uncomfortable. And what happens when we get uncomfortable? Well, our minds and our bodies subconsciously shift back to the comfort zone. And what is that? It's the status quo. And so, with these changes in mind, I'd like to introduce you to the transformation trifecta. This is my framework that gives us 3 aspects to help drive your organization's transformation capability. And think of this as 3 legs of a stool. You need all 3. And over-indexing on one doesn't necessarily make up for a deficiency in the other, and actually sometimes quite the opposite. So the first element is a strong will to change. This is about recognizing that the status quo doesn't work and is in fact unacceptable in all ways, so that we must find a different place to be. You know, it's funny, change author John Cotter estimates that 75% of an organization's senior leaders need to be on board to drive successful change. But in an industry like retail, where we've got huge workforces and many different layers of hierarchy to manage and oversee that, I would argue that 75% needs to be not just of the senior leaders, but of all leaders. And it's also worth clarifying that 75% is about genuine engagement and buy-in, not compliance, because compliance can frankly be fooled by lip service, which gives us a false sense of reality, which doesn't lead to sustained changes for sure. So a strong will to change is key. Secondly, we need to have an achievable approach. This is about being able to express a vision clearly, a destination for us all to head towards that is, as I say, with great clarity, so there are no gaps, no assumptions being made. And it's also about being able to change this vision into a set of tangible changes so that we know the journey there, the road there. And essentially, if we understand where we're going and how we get there, we're going to be in a lot better of position. We can dive headfirst into that clarity challenge. We can explain what the initiative is. And we can focus on answering the unanswered questions, even if those questions are not being asked. Remember, mentally, they are being asked and we are filling in the gaps. So it's critical to be comfortable with the volatility, the uncertainty, the complexity, and the ambiguous nature of the world we live in today. You may have heard that as VUCA before, right? But it's funny, when we look at the innovation side of change, I would argue that ideas are often the easy part, and it's implementation that is the hard part that we get stuck on. That is where we need to focus our attention in terms of how do we deliver the change and how do we sustain the change? 2 critical aspects. And if we do this, we have an achievable approach. Then if we move on to the third and final leg of the transformation trifecta, we need the right people to do it. We need the right people to be able to define or to develop or to deliver any given change. We touched earlier on the fact that there are many different skills between technical experts and change experts. And, you know, given the fact that you do have some fabulous people in your team or in your organization, there is a huge opportunity to support them, to guide them and to coach them out of their comfort zone and into this role of being a change expert. Now, maybe you have people that already are change experts, and that's fantastic. But please don't rely on those people, because often those who do get transformation and change are overworked, and you can't put all of the eggs on them, right? You can't put all of the major shifts as well as the development of others all on their shoulders. So be ready to support your technical experts and ultimately the loyal people that have delivered your brand for years, perhaps, and help them personally transform to take on the challenge of change with the right skills, the right mindsets, the right confidence to be able to, like I say, courageously lead through the volatility and the uncertainty that transformation brings. So we have now three parts of the transformation trifecta. We have a strong will to change, we have an achievable approach, and we have the right people to do it. And so here's a second question that I would like you to take away and to ask yourself. What is it you need to do next to intentionally change the approach of your business transformation? I'd love to hear from you about your thinking or about the challenges that you are facing, or if you'd like a little reminder of those two questions as well, of course. You can find me on LinkedIn or obandco.uk to find out about the Retail Transformation Podcast or more. But I would love to hear what your thoughts are on those two questions. Because as we sort of look at change as a whole, we do recognize that we live in a volatile world, which, by the way, continues to remain uncertain for some time to come. And there are loads of consumer factors which continue to shift, continue to evolve. So change is here and change is continuing to come, whether we like it or not, frankly, let's be honest. And you have a chance to change. And I do urge you to take that chance. Consider the fundamental and the incremental transformations and what your mix is. Consider how you will develop a strong will, an achievable approach, and the right people. But above all, be intentional with how you approach transformation and don't leave change to chance. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you, Ollie. Very insightful. Really, really appreciate you taking the time to give us a real insight and into the psychological side as well of change. And maybe just one quick question in terms of, for our participants and attendees, what one piece of advice would you leave them when they're looking at change and their chance to change?
I think don't take it for granted, to be honest. I think, like I say, it's very easy to focus in on the ideas or the sort of the sexy technology, but the very process of change is a lot beyond that, right? We talk of digital transformation a lot, but I think that really confuses us because we tend to focus in on the digital bit. But there is a huge amount of non-digital transformation that is still needed to make that same shift happen. So I think be intentional and do definitely work out what it is that you need to do to change, not just the idea itself.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ollie. And thank you for dispelling a lot of those buzzwords as well and for really focusing the mind on change. So amazing. So that concludes this session. Big thanks again to Ollie Banks. You can check him out on LinkedIn and on obandco.uk as well. So that concludes this session and we'll be back shortly with the next one. Thank you. So welcome to this session at the Mid-Market Summit at CX Inspire. And this session is around customer centricity and the role of the marketplace, where I'm really delighted to be joined by Ralph Percival, the e-commerce director at Jules. And thank you for taking the time out today to join us, Ralph. Could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about Jules and the role you have there?
Yeah, of course. Of course I can, Neil. Thank you for the intro. So, I said I'm Ralph Percival. I'm the e-commerce director at Jules. I've been with Jules for quite a period of time now. I think just over 7 years. And during that time, have sort of been responsible for the e-commerce operation So that's running all of our websites. I also am responsible for customer services, and more latterly, our integrated marketplace we'll talk a little bit more about, I'm sure, with Friends of Jules. And also from an end-to-end point of view, currently managing our 3PL. So everything from taking the first click on the website through to the last mile in terms of delivery.
Brilliant, thank you, Ralph. And from the perspective of Jules, omni-channel retailer, UK, and expanded out to US and some countries in Europe as well. Fashion retail and how that's kind of expanded as well. There's been a lot of reinvention, particularly in the years that you've been there. What sort of significant changes have you seen in those last 7 years?
Well, I mean, I think it's a good question, because quite a lot, I guess, is the is the easy answer, but I'm sure you want a bit more detail than that. So, look, when I started at Jules, I think e-commerce was represented somewhere around probably about 15 to 20% of our total turnover. And if you then fast forward to today, it's well north of 50%. So we're maybe a little bit unusual in that respect, as a multi-channel retailer and with a wholesale, that digital represents such a large proportion of our both of our sales as they are today, and of our growth story over those last 7 or 8 years. And I guess, first of it, yes, part of it's down to the sector, the trends that we've all been following in terms of the advancement of digital, through technology, customer shopping behavior, and all of those things that have sort of meant that we're all living in a very, very digital age now. I think from a Jules perspective, we've had that focus on digital first strategy, practically since I've been here. And it's gone, I think, from a point where it was organic growth to something that we've then pushed very hard in terms of the focus and the level of investment that we've put behind our e-commerce operation, our e-commerce business, whether that's through our multi-channel business or our standalone digital. So to go back to the question, what's happened in the last 7 years? We've obviously matured as a business. We're a PLC, so our sales are publicly available, and also in terms of some of the splits across our business. But we've grown up across all facets, as you would do. So from our operating systems and our technology to the luckily the brand new head office I'm sitting in at the moment, which we moved into recently, to the way that we operate. And that cuts all the way through the model, and it's not just digital. It's how we source product. It's how we run our business. It's running as a PLC as opposed to being, previously equity and privately owned. So I think comes with that a lot of growing pains, but it does mean that we feel, from whether it's from an infrastructure point of view, technical capability, etc., from our how we've grown our customer awareness as a brand, means that certainly from a UK-centric point of view, we've come a long way. And I think you can see, just in the last 12 months, we've acquired Garden Trading as a brand. So we now feel our ability to operate in the area where we can take on more brands to expand our portfolio. The launch of our integrated marketplace a couple of years ago shows that we're still very much on a growth story. And that's internationally as well as UK based. So I don't think there's any, we like to think we innovate, we try to do things differently, we make mistakes, we learn from those mistakes, and we move forward. So there's just an appetite in this business to continue to grow, and perhaps do things a little bit differently, from the norm, recognizing we're in a very crowded marketplace.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think it's an incredible growth story, and thanks for the insight there, Ralph. And what's been really key to that success from the outside looking in anyway is kind of keeping a customer centric approach and focusing on your customers in everything you do. It sounds really easy, but it's very, very difficult. Is there any thoughts you have on that, or any ways you feel you've achieved that well?
Yeah, and as you say, it's a very sort of easy thing to say, isn't it? Being a customer-centric business, not always so easy to deliver. And I think you can't probably break it down into a single sentence to describe what that means. But really, I guess it's everything from the product. You start with the product, whether it's the trend that you're following and the products that you sell to your target customers, the quality of those products, the price that you sell them at. So there's a value equation in there clearly. Part of that built around the brand value that we have, and it extends right through to the customer service that you offer your customers, whatever channel they shop in. We've always famed ourselves on that. We're not, clearly we are a commercial business, but we always recognize that look after your customers and they will look after you. And it's the old adage of it's easier to hold on to your existing customers than acquire new ones is absolutely true. So, we like to think from the surveys and the feedback that we get from our customers that, if you walk into a jewel shop, for example, and you have a challenge, or you buy something on the website and it doesn't, arrive as you would expect it to, that we will look after you. And I think that's certainly true. I think, if you talk digitally, clearly we try and offer a good digital experience and a customer experience online. Not always easy to do with technology challenges and the expectations of customers wanting a great customer experience. But whether we measure ourselves in how fast the site is during peak periods to making sure we get customers' orders out of the door on time, and where we maybe we don't always hit our own benchmarks, we always put the customer at the back of that. So we always try and look after the customer in the event of any eventuality in terms of things that we end up from. And I think that extends through to our other channels, whether our wholesale or international channels. I think we take the same view. So I think as much as anything, to answer your question, it's a mindset that you have to adopt in a business, and that's from the leadership top down as to how we behave as individuals and as teams, no matter what function you work in the business, to make sure you look after your customers for the long term and not just for the short term.
Brilliant. That's really insightful, and I love how you said it. It's a mindset, and I think that's really evident in everything that you do, whether that's online or in the stores, or if you're buying from one of your wholesale partners as well. So it really kind of links into Jules being that omni-channel business, and that model has kind of evolved from probably a large portion of the business being wholesale to more e-commerce and Friends of Jules marketplace. Would you be able to talk a little bit about that strategy and how that's evolved?
Yeah, of course. So, I think, that channel mix for us is important, and we've all seen, the challenges around the high street, and that's impacted us quite a bit, and I guess in the long-term trend from wholesale. But a lot of our wholesalers are turning from, multi-channel or store businesses into online. So that in a way ebbs and flows. So, a lot of the business we do through wholesale will go through somebody else's website, if not our own. But I think a slightly more broadly strategic view has been that, to grow and expand as a business in this sort of mid sort of lifestyle sector, and you can see the competitor brands out there. You can see Bowden, White Stuff, White Company, Sea Salt, etc. Is that we're not an M&S or a John Lewis, so we're not one of the very, very large retailers that has that. Maybe doesn't have that much broader customer appeal because of the nature of some of the stock, the products and their range offering and their sort of store portfolio. So we had to look in a different way, and that different way was, how do we still engage with our core customer but expand the offer, and actually make ourselves more of a lifestyle choice rather than just a lifestyle clothing choice. And I think that's why we landed on launching Friends of Jewels, which is our sort of marketplace offer, which expands us into, as you'll see if you look on the website right now, a very strong proposition around Christmas gifting in an area that we could never have supplied that sort of product portfolio and that sort of boutique appeal that we now have around gifting in the home space, in the garden space. So we have now, we're now operating in areas where we may not have been famous, but we have a very strong customer base who are very engaged with the types of products that we're selling. So that's, it builds awareness, it builds engagement, it allows us to cross-sell across marketplace products into our core jewels, expand our product offering, and obviously build as not just a bigger business today, but for the future, because it gives us very much a springboard to expand into new services and new offerings as we, develop that marketplace offer.
Amazing. And you mentioned obviously the UK has been a big focus. Is there plans to try and expand that to other countries? And I know you're in the US and some of the European countries, but to kind of push that on in the next few months and years?
Well, we definitely have. I mean, I think that's an interesting thing around platforms and choices and things. We absolutely, see ourselves as a global brand. It's true to say that, most of our business is still fairly UK centric, but we still have a strong wholesale business in the US, and our e-com business is still growing there. It is in Germany. So it very much does. I think we still have a long way to go in terms of developing that true global capability, and that's through everything from the product that you sell to how you distribute that product and actually localize yourself around a market. And I would say that in my tenure at Jules, it's the one area that I think has got the most probably untapped potential, because I think our brand is strong, and I think where we have evidence that where it operates well in the likes of Germany, for example, that there's much stronger opportunity. I think what we have to be clear on is that we have to take the brand internationally, as well as just having a website that operates well in multilingual, multi-currency fashion. So the answer is yes. I still think a lot of our future growth opportunity will come from international markets.
Brilliant. And I think just to round off, I'm really appreciative of your time, Ralph. What else does the future hold for Jules, and other than international, what opportunities do you see, or maybe more broadly in retail in general as well? It'd be great to get your insight on this.
And I guess good question. I mean, I've got maybe a slightly parochial view because I really operate in that digital e-commerce space, and I think I think that's one of our challenges. For example, working with a partner like yourselves, Neil, is that we want to have I want to have a platform that it sets us apart in terms of delivers new benchmark standards in terms of operating as a marketplace outside of the very big players, obviously Amazon, eBay, etc. But I think in that lifestyle space, I think there's a gap in that market. I think we can therefore grow our overall offer and our brand appeal to a level, if we can adequately tackle, again, some of those, you're familiar with technology offers around multiple platforms all having to work and synchronize together to deliver a brilliant customer experience. I think beyond that, I think there's a lot more in terms of where the high street goes next. So I think we very much recognize taking digital to the high street, whether that's through mobile apps or in-store digital signage and different ways of shopping, expanding our lifestyle offer so you can access it, through those channels, maybe one day through stockists as well. So I think, our core proposition gives us plenty of potential to expand. I think we have to be really aware of customer trend and how people are shopping and behaving, whether it's in digital space or elsewhere. And we have to always adapt and improve, and always be thinking about, we always have to think about what next, because the minute you stand still in this space, then it feels like it's almost game over, doesn't it? So I think that's our
Yeah.
challenge. I think in terms of an outright change to our approach, I think it will be grow internationally. I think it will be expanded marketplace offer, and having a really great platform across not just our core web, but across all our areas to support that, whether it's through customer services, our marketing tech, etc., to help us drive that forward.
Absolutely, and look, as we come to the end here, thank you first of all for your time, but also your trust in us as well, and for helping us and letting us be part of that incredible growth story. And we look forward to being a part of that going forward, and those exciting plans into practice. So that brings an end to this session. Ralph, thank you. Really appreciate your time. And we'll be starting the next session very shortly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome to the next session at SAP Customer Experience Inspire. I'm absolutely delighted and privileged to be joined by Alex Bezer from Glanbia. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Nick.
We're going to talk a little bit about their growth strategy and how the business has evolved and SAP's role in that. So thank you, Alex. So maybe you could first of all take a little bit of time to talk about your role and responsibilities as the CTO of Glanbia GPN.
Sure, yeah. My role at CTO here is really to build the technology strategy that will support the delivery of the future business goals and aspirations that we've got. Our core focus is our customers, but we need to develop tools to provide our teams the tools in order to give a great customer experience, whilst ensuring the underlying infrastructure that we've got is both stable and secure for the future.
Brilliant, thank you, Alex. And could you tell me a little bit more about the brands that are included in Glanbia Global
Sure.
Performance and Nutrition?
Yeah, so Glanbia Performance Nutrition has a really exciting range of sports nutrition brands within the portfolio, as you called out. So we've got things like the world's #1 Optimum Nutrition, BSN for the bodybuilders, Think and Amazing Grass, both American brands, Amazing Grass with a focus on organically grown cereal grasses, Isopure, Nutrimino, globally recognized SlimFast. We've got Body and Fit, and we've recently acquired Level Up, which is a sports drink for gamers. So a really inclusive set of brands.
Wow, yeah, really covers everything. And you mentioned Body and Fit there. Tell us a little bit more about that one in particular.
Sure, yeah. Body and Fit is the Benelux largest sports nutrition business. It was acquired by Glanbia in 2017. It sells a mix of own brand product, such as Whey Perfection for muscle recovery. It sells Glanbia Performance Nutrition brands, so the ones I previously mentioned, but we also add third-party products there to complement our mix, just to make sure that we've got a complete suite for the consumer. The business was purchased really with the ambition to scale globally across Europe and then into selected markets.
Yeah, and I think that leads us on nicely to tell us a little bit about the growth journey, and obviously in a very competitive market, how you've achieved this.
Yeah, so when Body and Fit was initially purchased, a review was done of the platforms that we were on, and it was decided to make a decision at that point to replatform, and that's where the relationship with SAP started from this perspective. So we replatformed onto SAP Commerce as a first step, and this, along with several other application changes, gave us a solid foundation for growth. We were able then to quickly scale into more markets. So we've currently got 15 localized sites shipping to over 70 countries globally. And more recently, we've brought other brands within the GPN environment onto the platform to give us further leverage in that investment. So this year we've launched Optimum Nutrition in the US, UK, Japan, India, and Australia. I guess in addition to that scale growth, we've had a focus on our customer, continually through that, to improve our customer experience, and that's where we're developing the SAP Commerce platform with you guys in terms of adding enhancements and so on, and having a close relationship with our customers has provided us, the ability for real quick feedback that would enables us then to improve the business quickly. I was going to say that the third part that we've really focused on here is our product set can be deemed quite intimidating and complex to understand. So having the capability within there to build out aspirational and educational content as well has been a big focus for us, especially over the last 18 months with COVID sort of slowing down some of those channels of distribution.
Yeah, that's a very important point of how you've adapted the offering, and impressive to see how quickly you've been able to roll it out to so many countries. And you touched on there about how it kind of changed the dynamic in the relationship with your customers. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so Glanbia Performance Nutrition has traditionally had a relationship with distributors, and they've had the relationship with the customer, or all the retailers have had the relationship with the customer. We're now able to build that relationship directly, which gives us a much faster feedback cycle for both product development and the technical development that we're looking for. So the Body and Fit brand in it is a brand in itself, and with those relationships, it helps us to build that brand and that loyalty. I guess in addition to that, as I mentioned, with the disruption of the past 18 months with COVID, the gyms clothing, retail businesses closing down, we were able to pivot quite quickly and actually provide a slightly different product mix to our consumers to meet their new goals of working out at home, staying healthy, the immunity and so on and so forth. So it allowed us to work through this disruptive time.
We really appreciate the partnership for yourself and the wider Glanbia business. It's amazing to hear what you've achieved already, and I feel like you've only just started and so much has been achieved. But what does the future hold for Glanbia, GPN and Body and Fit, and I guess SAP's role in that as well?
Yeah, so we've a solid growth strategy, both across organic growth and likely further acquisition. The foundations of our platform around SAP Commerce, which we'll certainly leverage in the future. And this will see us grow both the GPN brands internationally and adopt more brands onto the platform. So I've mentioned Think and Amazing Grass's potentials already. We have a focus on providing a more personalised experience for our customers, which will again leverage the various elements of the platform that we've put in place. Customer experience is a continuous area of improvement, and ensuring we provide a joined up relevant journey for our customers as they interact with the brands across various touch points is essential and going forward. And I think, closing out, SAP will remain a key growth partner for us into the future.
That's brilliant to hear. And look, Alex, thanks again for taking the time. Really appreciate the insight, and look, I'm sure we'll speak soon, and that finishes this session, and we'll be on to the next session shortly. Thank you, Alex.
Thanks, Neil. It's a pleasure.
We've got to stay fit and focused, people, like our amazing guest, Johnny Wilkinson. He's coming up next with a Q&A session with Sandrine Pons, Amaury Martin and Neil Howarth.
Wow, Johnny Wilkinson, is that you?
Yes, it is me. I'm here. Thank you for having me. Indeed.
Okay, welcome. It's really an honor to talk to you today, and really thank you for taking some time out to join us. Yeah. Of course, you are very well known for your outstanding rugby and the Newcastle Falcons, England, the British and Irish Alliance, and Toulon. I know a little bit more about last one, as a French. You earned 98 caps for your country and brought England, World Cup glory in 2003, right? I think, yes, I'm right here also. By all accounts, you are one of the all-time rugby greats, Let's start with your journey for those successes. I read that you started rugby at 4 years old. I'm right? 4? Is that not too young?
Yeah. Not in those days. I think, in those days, 4 was, we were young, but we couldn't wait. My brother and I couldn't wait, so we were ready to go at 4. And I agree nowadays with the way that rugby's control in terms of the physical elements. I think it's really, really important. But in those days, you know, we were diving into each other and tackling and all those things from the age of 4. So, very young start.
And I read that you wrote down that you needed to be England captain at 7, right? And already you were willing to be the best in anything, the first to do everything. I remember that. To be really honest, Johnny, I don't remember really what I was thinking of at that age. I don't remember. Or maybe I'm not sure I can share that with you. I don't know, maybe the both. How did you know? How really did you know about this? How were you so certain at the age of 7 that you would succeed?
It's a good question. To be honest, not one I've really sort of been asked to think about much, but there are 2 elements of it that would make it so memorable to me. And because it's placed around 2 very important parts of my childhood, and one of them is passion, and rugby was my all-time passion. So I just happen to remember anything that's associated with that passion. Sport in general was always a massive passion, so I remember sport, anything to do with sport. And the other part was fear. I grew up with a really heavy relationship with fear, and part of that list of wanting to achieve things was a huge part to do with my passion and excitement, and also a lot of it to do with a kind of need to achieve as well, in order to try kind of stave off this journey that went on through my career and my life, and that I had loads and loads of passion and excitement, but also loads and loads of fear and need to achieve. So I wanted and I needed at the same time, and so I think those 2 things I remember quite clearly.
So Johnny, when you kick those winning points in 2003, it's one of the few moments that I remember where I was, how I felt. Even now, I know lots of other people do as well. A lot of our audience today would really relate to the stresses of work, life, and the balance of that. But how did you and how do you now manage the pressure and expectations, particularly in the moments before that drop kick?
It's really, that question is such a big doorway, the way I see it, such a big doorway into a massive change in life experience, because the very nature of that kick is that beforehand, building up to that kick, there's just constant thought and trying to prepare for it and trying to make it happen before it's time, almost trying to control everything so that you get the guarantee it's going to happen. But what you kind of realize is so much of that is just absolutely wasted energy. The bit that wasn't wasted in the lifetime up to it was perfecting or attempting to perfect the skill of a drop kick and understanding the ball and getting to know the ball. But even that doesn't take place through thought. Because when you're about to kick a ball in practice, just before the kick, you think about it. But then when you kick a ball in practice, you just kick it. And this is the same in this moment here, was that leading up to that kick, I was thinking about it. But when that ball hit me in the hands and I went to kick it, I completely switched out. By that, I mean, I wasn't even in my body. I mean, that's how much I kind of moved out of that thought. I just remember seeing it happen. I had no recollection of actually doing it. And it's a massive opportunity to realize that it's giving into that idea that it's going to happen, and to just allow it and to trust it and let it take its course, not because it's a gamble, because all the thinking, might do this, might do that, whatever. It's just, and that you're choosing to let that go, but just to understand that that's what happens anyway. And it's the same with even when training. It's just like, just thought gets nothing done. It's like thinking about it just doesn't get it done. Doing it gets it done. But if you're thinking about something, thinking is great for preparing in certain ways in terms of organizing. So, I use thinking a huge amount when it comes to like packing a bag, or when am I going to leave to get to the airport on time, or in that moment, it might be sort of looking around and seeing where the opposition defenders are and thinking, okay, what could happen here, or before the play, what line out call are we going to use, or those kind of things. But in terms of that activity, thought just gets in the way. And for some reason, if I tried to kick that ball and thought about it at the same time, I doubt I'd have even connected with the ball. I think I'd have probably missed the ball, let alone missed the post. And I think for some reason I just knew that, and so much so that I don't even barely remember kicking it. I just remember watching it and thinking, this is me doing this, but I'm not really doing it. I'm so in it. But it's amazing, sort of speaking about this before, that so much of preparation takes place in thought that's just wasted. The same way that in a changing room before a game, you have loads and loads of people who are trying to think themselves through their performance, and you look at them and they're so fragile, and they look so fearful and so absent. And then you look at someone else in the corner, and I had maybe one or two of these in my entire career, and you look at them and you think, oh, that person looks ridiculously ready, ridiculously prepared. And you go and say to them, is everything all right? How are you feeling about the game? And the response was always, yeah, I'm fine. Let's just go see. Let's just see. We've done our preparation, feeling great. Let's just go see how it goes. And it's that's preparation, to liberate yourself to be in that space. Whereas I think preparation for me was always trying to cover each base and make sure, and thinking about every eventuality. But thankfully in that drop goal and in the times when I really played well in rugby, I just gave in to that. Just I've done what I'm supposed to do to be here, and now it's a case of I'm just going to see how it goes, understanding that whatever happens is going to be right for me, because I know that it's all part of this working out for me at some point. We lost lots of games against lost to Wales in the final of the Grand Slam. We lost to Scotland the following year in the final match of the Grand Slam. We lost to Ireland the following year in the final match of the Grand Slam. We lost to France the following year in the final match of the Grand Slam, second to last match of the Grand Slam. All of these, you could have said, oh, it's the most terrible thing in the world. But if you just keep seeing it as part of it, and you just say, okay, next step, let's see. And it all unfolds, and suddenly you're in the last seconds of extra time in a World Cup final, kicking the ball through a post. And then when you look back, you say, oh, yeah, it all makes sense. But when you look forward, it doesn't make sense. But if once you just allow it and look back, it kind of all makes sense. There's just that ability to relax, to start to feel the actual moment of here and now, and use that to gauge your appropriate action, as opposed to use your thought of 10, 20, 30 minutes ago, 2 days ago, a week ago, and try and use that as your appropriate connection to this moment now. It doesn't make any sense. But like doing a speech in your hotel room in front of a mirror and trying to deliver exactly the same speech when you get to the event. You get to the event and you just allow your preparation to move with the event. And I think that was what happened with that kick for me. There's no way I would have kicked that had I been trying to understand the enormity through thought. I just allowed my body to do what it instinctively knew how to do.
Wow, thank you. Very insightful.
Yeah, it was a good question.
I have one more, sorry.
No, as many as you want. Far away.
I really admire your openness to talk about mental health, one thing the last couple of years has really highlighted for everyone is that change is constant, and we can often find ourselves in unfamiliar and daunting situations. But you've shown incredible resilience and adaptability throughout your career. What sort of things can people take from that and learn from you when they face unfamiliar and daunting situations?
Just that absolutely anything is possible, and it's supposed to be possible, and that on the base level, that my understanding, for me, in my experience, is that we're all supported and guided at a certain level if we're open enough to connect to that guidance. And what that means for me, what that's meant for me, is just to sort of mention this in talking earlier, is just that when you see yourself as a physical being, it's a really disconnecting. If you lead with that identification, it disconnects hugely from all that possibility, because even the very nature of the physical has laws. For example, a physical body, has a lifespan, and physical things. Some things are hot, things are cold, things are bigger, smaller, energy impact, all that kind of stuff. It all has laws, and what you can do through the physical is largely limited. What you can connect to in terms of possibility is definitely limited, and that resilience that you're speaking about is possibility. It's not the idea of resilience through a physical lens. Is you get knocked down and you get back up again, and it's almost like a recovery. But the idea being is that you're back to what you were before, just to get knocked down again, and then you come back to what you were before. It's almost like a resistance. The resilience is being seen as resistance, but resilience, when it's on a deeper level, which I was mentioning before, is about when you see yourself as deeper than physical, but see yourself as energetic. Resilience isn't about getting back to where you were before. It's everything that affects you, expands you, and takes you somewhere new. And resilience is creativity. Resilience is brand newness. Resilience is not about surviving or coping or managing. Resilience is about a childlike resilience, which anything that happens just becomes a new plaything and becomes a new exploration. And that, for me, is where this goes, because there's no limit to energetically what you can feel in life, what you can experience. And you look at any number of different experiences going on people, they're so vast and varied, but there's also people experiencing things on levels that are impossible to even describe, because words are physical things, they just can't handle it. And I think the problem is health and well-being, performance, leadership, it's all physical. It's all about you lead with what you do. And its health is about how your body looks. And it's about, and even on a level of thought, it's about what you can think of, and how much materialistic things you've got in the bank or in the driveway or whatever it is. If you want the truth to resilience, it's about beginning to see something beyond physical, which starts with interesting experiences like things like meditation, where you shut your eyes and the physical disappears. And now you start to experience things beyond the physical. It seems strange, because even if you'd mentioned the word meditation to me up to my late 20s, I'd have laughed you out the room. But it just took me time to get to that stage to realize that all healing and all these kind of amazing things takes place on a deeper level. And the physical is then emerges from that possibility, and it's incredible. But if you try and emerge possibilities out of the physical, everything becomes a lesser experience until it eventually becomes a nothing. The idea that we're a tiny bit of energy inside a physical body means that we'll take on the limitations of the physical body. But if you imagine the body to be a happening within this amazing energy, you expand the energy, you get an amazing happening, and all those amazing things about healing and health and sensory perception. Brilliant. But none of this resilience exists to the physical realm. The physical realm is just is just trying to fight and sacrifice and get through and survive. But life is so much more powerful beyond that level.
Thank you so much. Really, really insightful. Thank you.
And you said during your keynote a few minutes ago that at a moment come a time where, like many athletes, you can share your part of injuries also and spend through tough times regarding the way you will recover and try to get back to your best level. You talked about recently your body, this kind of resilience. There is a state of awareness, of acceptance, and then the patient help you reshape yourself and go back. If there were one word for the people who listen to us that could help them find, like you, their inner strength, what would it be?
I think it maybe, I'd probably say the word why, just because nothing happens without the willingness for it to happen. And the willingness has to come from somewhere. And the willingness for such a change has to be motivated at the beginning by a why. Why do it? My why was understanding that I wanted to be a perfectionist. I wanted to understand also potential, and I wanted to know that I'd made the most of my potential. And it was a realization that if I was going to be really honest about that, and I was going to be true to myself and say, I really mean this, I want this to be about potential, my why was big enough to say, right, well, I've got to go somewhere I haven't been before, and I've got to go somewhere uncomfortable, and I'm going to go for it. And that was my why. And then my why included, I realized, my performance, my leadership, but also my relationships. So my why then started to include my family. My why then started to include and I realized that all of this understanding that to work on and to turn towards my inside meant that after I got past that first why, it looked after everything. Because the idea about any transformation in an outside world taking place, or in a business, or in a team, or in a family, or in an environment, or a planetary transformation, any of that taking place without transformation first taking place within an individual is madness to think going to happen. But first of all, you need a why, and the why can be, it doesn't matter what your why is, as long as it's big enough for you to keep reminding yourself when you go down that idea about letting the outside determine the inside. There's enough for you to say, no, not this time. I'm going to let that be. And I'm going to get more curious about what's happening inside me. And then I realize that actually this whole world is happening inside me. And all my relationships are happening inside me. And all my joy is happening inside me. And funnily enough, all my potential is taking place inside me. It's not out there to be controlled or earned.
I see the direct link with what you just say and the daily life of an employee or an entrepreneur that builds his own business, and the why for him could be his customer base. It's vital importance that the people buy from his product and he's happy with that, and the business grows. To me, finding the why can be individual, but can also maybe impact a lot the group. How do you position yourself, or did you position yourself in terms of leadership and the importance of the individual performance inside the group as an impact it can have? What about this kind of team spirit, and how can we maybe increase the why to something even bigger, something that goes beyond one person, but that can stimulate an entire group?
I think the key for this is that the why is always inclusive, no matter what it is, because if it's a desire to turn inwards, the idea with that is that you let go. The journey of turning inwards is to let go of old ideas and conclusions, which are barriers. And so as soon as you go on that journey, you open your barriers and you start to include. And that's why the journey will always support and work for anyone. The phrase is that working works for everyone. Working on someone else works for no one. And this is the very nature of it, is that why, as soon as you find your why, it'll always include, and expand in terms of team spirit. What you manage to do as you expand those boundaries is, without that separation and that judgment, you start allowing other people to be all they can be around you, instead of them needing to be what they should be so that they can be around you. And this is the essence of team spirit, because when everyone feels they have space to be free to be who they are, you get the best of everyone. But you can't control a team to get the best out of everyone. You can't manage a team to get the best out of everyone. You can't dictate to a team to get the best out of everyone. You can only allow for the best to come out of everyone, and that starts with that journey. So it's as soon as this journey takes place, it benefits everyone and every team, because when you remove those boundaries, for me anyway, I'm speaking from my experience, when you remove those boundaries, you realize that either that you're not a special someone, you're a no one, and that means you connect to everyone on the same level. But it also means that the same thing is that you realize you are actually a special someone, but then so is everyone else in their own right. And therefore, there's no such thing as a customer and a client or a business owner or a performer or a spectator and a player. There's just beautiful representations of energy that are here to serve each other. And you realize that every conversation that you have with a say, for example, you meet a young child, a young kid who's watching a game, that conversation, it's not a young kid and a player, it's two bits of energy that have so much to give each other. And it's not a customer and a business owner, it's just two energies that really have so much they want and so much they can serve each other. And the more that takes place, and the more that each other feels that amazing connection, I think that's why, like you said, the why can be whatever you want, but the beauty of it is that the inward journey is about letting go of what you think you know, whereas the other journey is about gathering more of what you think you know, which separates you even more from each other. So that's why we mentioned about acceptance being such a big part of it, because acceptance is pretty much the only thing that is complete, that is not at all self-serving. So acceptance does not serve the self, so therefore it doesn't add to anything. Acceptance always lets go of something. In order to accept, you have to let go of something. That's why it's the path of the journey.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Johnny, really I write that down. Allow the best to come out to serve each other. I love it. Thank you, Johnny. It's really resonates to me. Yes, thank you. Yes, so finally, Johnny, I know you set up your foundation and finding your why. Yeah, I just write down finding my why. I need to find mine. I need to think about it after this talk altogether. How did you reinvent yourself post-rugby? And are you enjoying yourself today? Don't you miss the adrenaline and stress levels? Let's know a little bit about it.
The path of anyone, it's all the same. There's a lot mentioned around sport with people finishing and suffering a bit of a crisis around identity and what have you, and reinvention and all this being necessary. But it probably just gets spoken about a lot more because sports people retire earlier. Whereas when people retire at 65, we don't focus on that conversation quite so much. And because sports people are well known, it's maybe more spoken about or what have you, but it seems to be the same for everyone in that with the physical idea, you identify also with what you do, and when that gets taken away, some of you gets taken away with it, and you're in that space. But my analogy for my own path in this, it's really understanding that the physical, whatever you're doing, is just a shirt that you wear for that moment. So for a large part of my life, I wore a rugby shirt. But underneath that rugby shirt, there's like a bustling desire, a desire to connect, to relate to other people, to perform, to lead, to express and feel joy. It's really just bustling. And when you put a shirt over it, it finds a vehicle. The problem is with me when I played rugby, I just forgot to take the shirt off. So every time I finished training, I wouldn't take it off before I got home. So I ended up wearing it all through the night. And all the time I'm thinking rugby and doing it. And then when I was injured, I couldn't take the shirt off. And so I started to feel like I was a rugby player who wasn't playing rugby. And so therefore I was lost. I felt left out. I felt like I didn't belong. Whereas the understanding is that you look at anyone else, it's like, what was I doing as a rugby player? I was someone that had a real big goal. I had an amazing team around me who wanted something similar, and we were all searching for our best to try to make it happen. And you realize that isn't that what absolutely everyone's trying to do? It's just we're all exactly the same, but we're just wearing different shirts. And the more that you're able to keep taking that shirt off, you realize that it's the secret behind everything. And therefore, that, like I said, that acceptance when you let go of things is another way of taking the shirt off, which means you then can put any shirt on. So I go out in my driveway and play basketball, or I play with my young daughter, or I go for a meal with my family, or I sit and do some work on the foundation. I'm playing rugby again. It's the same thing. It's exactly the same feeling. It's the same connection. It's the same experience, because it's not me in a rugby shirt with then my foundation shirt over the top. So it's kind of like a rugby player trying to do a foundation. The rugby shirt's off. I can put it back on again if I want. It's there if I need it. But once I take it off and I put my foundation shirt on, it's the same experience as playing rugby. It's pure, the same as the basketball. The problem is that we get this idea that what we spend a lot of our time doing is who we are. And because we don't take that shirt off, whenever we put another one over the top, it feels like it's not the same. Whereas the key is to see you can become a someone, but you'll never stop being a no one. And being a no one is the most beautiful thing, because it means you can be anything and everything on the outside. You become a nothing on the inside, you can be anything on the outside. But if you become a something on the inside, it's a very different experience on the outside.
Wow. What's your mantra? Last question. Tell me, Johnny, what is your mantra?
It's because of the nature of this, for me, it's evolving all the time. Because if we did this interview in a classroom, I'd say I'd have different answers for things, because it depends on the moment right now. But I kind of have different ones that float about within me. But I think at the moment, one of the ones that I really understand is that it's now or never. It's now or never. There is no, I'm going to, I'll start this tomorrow, or I just need to get through this. I'll just work this out and then I'll start enjoying myself. It's just about finding a way to really follow whatever your passion is in this moment. So, and you can't put that off, because putting it off is illusory. It never happens. Whereas right now is all there is. A case of saying you do it now, or you do it never. And it's a brilliant reminder to just keep telling yourself that it's now or never. And the thing is to say that what's my highest passion within this moment? And if I'm talking to you guys here like this, my highest passion is to speak about what I love speaking about. And if we're going for a walk to the shops, I walk to the shops and I think to myself, okay, what's within my walk to the, is it to just look at the trees and love them, because that's what excites me the most. What is it that excites me the most within what I'm doing right now? To follow that, and just to and like I said to you before in my speak, what does that mean? It's now or never. It means connect or disconnect. Just connect physically by relaxing, connect mentally by getting excited and passionate, and connect emotionally by just choosing to trust in your worthiness. And it's now or never. There is no kind of, yeah, but. There's no but. Yeah, I would do that, but it's do it now. And if that means in the middle of an argument with one of your colleagues, do it then. Connect then and see what happens. See what happens to your world when you argue in a connected state.
Okay, I remember that. With everybody running.
I'd like to hear how that goes.
And my team tomorrow. Hey guys, why not? And we should do, yeah. Thank you, Johnny. It has been a pleasure to have you today with us, and really appreciate your openness and playing the game with us, answering all the questions, and yeah, it's really, really, really good. Thank you. You are very impressed. Thank you very much. Very deep content to share with us, and I have learned a lot, and I will remember. I remember some of your talks, and thank you for that. Thank you for taking the time. Really, thanks, Johnny.
Thank you so much for joining us. That is all we have time for today, unfortunately. However, the journey is only just beginning. You can access all of the content from this session and the other mid-market sessions, such as the inspiring keynote from Johnny Wilkinson, hear from our amazing customer speakers, and also hear from one of the leading influencers in digital in Oliver Banks. As well as this, you can see the wider platform where you can see demos, watch customer videos, and ask lots of questions. So meaning if you missed anything, you want to share it with others, or even watch it again, you absolutely can as part of the always on platform. So we've heard from some great customer stories in particular, and customer success is absolutely critical to us at SAP. And we'd love for your business to be one of the customers we feature next time. So please get in touch today, wherever you are in the journey, to see if we can support you across a lot of the different things we've mentioned today. And we really hope you found it interesting and informative, and we always really value your feedback as well. So we'd love to see you at any future events. We'll keep you posted on those, and in the meantime, stay safe, take care, and thanks for tuning in.